This is a self-playing presentation about the Sport Personality Questionnaire, which is provided by Sport Psychology and My Skills Profile. In this presentation, we will look at how sport psychology and sport psychology assessment can help sportsmen and sportswomen improve their performance and reach their potential. We will look in some detail at two psychological areas that are key to an athlete's competitiveness. First, we will define what work ethic and mental resilience mean in sport. Second, we will describe some of the mental factors that affect an athlete's approach to team working and their team leadership potential. In both these areas, we will look at some practical mental skills training tips and techniques that athletes can use to improve their performance. We are also going to cover the performance stats that the SPQ assessment test provides, and we will describe briefly some of the technical properties of the test. Sport psychology is the study of how mental factors affect the performance of people engaged in sporting activities. Carl Diem founded the world's first sport psychology laboratory in Berlin in 1920. The first sport psychology lab in the USA was established by Coleman Griffith at the University of Illinois in 1925. Sport psychology is an established discipline today, and many top athletes have a sport psychologist in their support team. Sport psychologists study how psychological factors influence athletic performance and how mental skills training can help athletes improve performance. Sport psychology professionals work with athletes in areas such as anxiety management, attention and focusing, communication, goal setting, imagery and visualization, self-talk, and team building. You can find out more about sport psychology at the Association for Applied Sport Psychology website. There are 3 reasons why you should do the SPQ20 Sport Personality Questionnaire. First, it will increase your general awareness and understanding of the personality attributes and other mental factors that influence athletic performance. You will get a personalized feedback report describing your personality and mental skills, with pointers for learning and performance improvement. Second, the assessment benchmarks your competitiveness using mental factor performance stats, based on a large international comparison group of over 10,000 sportsmen and sportswomen. So the assessment gives you psychological stats for you and your coach to consider together with your regular performance stats. Third, and most importantly, the point of doing the assessment is to improve your approach to training and competition, and increase your chances of performing well and winning. The SPQ20 Sport Psychology Assessment Test is designed to provide a rich picture of your personality and mental skills, to help you and your coach address any mental factors that may be getting in the way of you achieving your current and future goals. First, the assessment measures some key general personality factors that influence your style and performance, such as achievement motivation, power motivation, openness, empathy, and resilience. Second, the instrument assesses a number of specific attributes relevant to sports such as self-efficacy, flow, aggressiveness, and fear of failure. Third, the test measures the extent to which you use some common mental skills and competencies that top athletes utilize, for example, how far you use imagery, goal setting and positive self-talk. Finally, the questionnaire looks at relationship skills, sportsmanship, team working style, and leadership potential. The Work Ethic Resilience Matrix is a framework created by My Skills Profile and Sport Psychology, to evaluate the performance position of the athlete and his or her potential. It classifies athletes into 4 psychological types based on work ethic and resilience. We will talk more about the components of work ethic and resilience, and the scales that measure these factors later in the presentation. These 2 dimensions reveal the competitiveness and mental strength of an athlete. The general purpose of the analysis is to help understand where an athlete should focus, to improve their performance and realize their potential. The matrix identifies 4 types of sportsmen and sportswomen. Confident competitors occupy the upper right green cell of the matrix. These athletes excel in competitiveness and mental resilience. They feel positive about their game, are mentally strong, are motivated to achieve and have the will to win. Tense competitors occupy the upper left amber cell of the matrix. These athletes excel in competitiveness but lack mental resilience. They have the drive to work hard to realize their potential, but they lack self-belief at the time of testing. Easygoing underachievers occupy the lower right amber cell of the matrix. These athletes excel in confidence but lack the motivation to achieve. They present as sure of themselves and free of stress, but they lack the work ethic and competitive spirit to work hard to develop and realize their potential. Anxious underachievers occupy the lower left red cell of the matrix. These athletes lack work ethic, and present as uncertain of their abilities and their potential at the time of testing. They need help and support to boost their confidence and increase their motivation to achieve. Of course, not every athlete would slot neatly into one of the four cells. For example, if you are average on work ethic and average on resilience, you may exhibit a mix of the four styles. The SPQ20 will reveal where you appear to lie on this matrix. We do this by comparing your responses with the responses of other athletes who have completed the instrument. You don't need to do the test itself to utilize the matrix. What is your gut feeling about which of the categories you fall into? Put yourself in the position of your coach and picture your coach observing and evaluating your recent performance. Which of these cells do you think they would put you into? How do you think a competitor might describe you using the matrix if you asked them? You should also bear in mind that it is perfectly possible for an athlete to exhibit different characteristics in different performances. For example, you might be a golfer who leads the field in the first 3 rounds, exhibiting all the characteristics of a confident competitor. However, as every professional golfer knows, things change on Sunday, and that is when it becomes much harder to continue to exhibit these characteristics. It is also perfectly possible that you may have delivered a pretty modest performance over the first 3 rounds of play, but in the final round things change. You start to get into the zone, you play confidently and aggressively, and you race through the field to arrive at the top of the leaderboard. The Power Sportsmanship Matrix has been created to help athletes understand their team working style and leadership potential. It classifies athletes into 4 psychological types, based on power, motivation, and sportsmanship. We will explain the concepts of power, motivation, and sportsmanship, and the scales that measure these factors, shortly. Being an elite athlete requires relationship and team working skills. It is not just about you as an individual, it is about you as a member of a broader team, even when you are playing in an individual sport. The athletes that create the most favorable impression with their coaches, supporters, sponsors, and teammates are those that handle themselves well, and demonstrate people skills. The general purpose of the analysis is to help an athlete understand their team working style, and leadership style and potential. The matrix identifies 4 types of sportsmen and sportswomen. Democratic captains occupy the upper right green cell of the matrix. These athletes are motivated by power, personal status, and prestige, and a need for friendly relationships. They like to lead and like to be accepted and held in popular regard. This makes them natural and popular team leaders. Controlling captains occupy the lower right amber cell of the matrix. These athletes have the desire to lead, to be influential and make an impact, but they do not have the desire to be liked, and held in popular regard. This often means that they need to work hard, to take people with them. Team players occupy the upper left amber cell of the matrix. These athletes are not motivated by power and authority, so they are likely to be reluctant leaders. They do like to be accepted and held in popular regard, however, which makes them natural team players. Individual players occupy the lower left red cell of the matrix. These athletes do not have the desire to lead or the desire to be liked and held in popular regard. They tend to prefer doing things on their own, and do not seek the company or approval of fellow contestants. Of course, not every athlete would slot neatly into one of the 4 cells. For example, if you are average on the power motive and average on sportsmanship, you may exhibit a mix of the 4 styles. The SPQ20 will reveal where you lie on this matrix. We do this by comparing your responses with the responses of other athletes who have completed the instrument. Again, as with the work ethic resilience matrix, you don't need to do the test itself to utilize the matrix. What is your gut feeling about which of the categories you fall into? Put yourself in the position of your coach and picture your coach observing and evaluating how you operate in a team, relate to people, and whether you have leadership potential. Which cell do you think they would put you into? How do you think a team member might describe you using the matrix if you asked them? You should also bear in mind that it is perfectly possible for an athlete to exhibit different characteristics in different situations. For example, if you are the team captain, there are situations where the team may expect you to act quickly and decisively, and act more like a controlling captain than a democratic one. In other situations, the team may expect you to adopt a more participative approach, and spend time seeking and considering the team's views and opinions before reaching a decision. Professional athletes have lots of stats about their performance. If you are a golfer on the PGA Tour, you can see how you compare to your competitors off the tee, approaching the green, around the green and putting. There are a whole bunch of stats in each of these categories. The SPQ20 gives you mental stats to put alongside your other regular stats. These mental stats cover 20 areas, and are presented in 4 scorecards. The work ethic scorecard provides 7 stats, about your achievement drive and competitiveness. The resilience scorecard gives you 8 stats, about how confident and resilient you are, compared to other sportsmen and sportswomen. The sportsmanship scorecard gives you 3 stats, about how you relate to people and your attitude to shady behavior. The power scorecard shows how aggressively you perform compared to other athletes, and whether you are motivated to lead. The SPQ20 measures 7 different components of an athlete's work ethic, and presents them on a scorecard. Each of these components is assessed by a scale, made up of 8 items in the questionnaire. This scorecard indicates that in order to be mentally competitive, you need to display the following characteristics and behavior. 1. Achievement. The achievement stat measures whether you show through your behavior and actions, that you are motivated to train hard, and that you are prepared to make personal sacrifices, to achieve your goals and objectives. 2. Adaptability. The adaptability stat measures whether you are open to different ways of doing things, and other people's ideas and suggestions, and whether you keep up with the latest thinking, and whether you keep up with technical developments in your sport. 3. Competitiveness. The competitiveness stat measures how far you enjoy competing, whether you want to get in the winner's circle, and whether you believe in your ability, and will never give up. 4. Conscientiousness. The conscientiousness stat assesses whether you prepare thoroughly, whether you show willpower and self-discipline, and whether you demonstrate that you are prepared to stay with the plan. 5. Visualization. The visualization stat assesses the extent to which you make use of imagery to help play well, rehearse performances, counter nerves and stay calm. 6. Intuition. The intuition stat assesses whether you listen to your feelings, alongside information and advice from your coach and teammates, and whether you have learned to trust your instincts and intuition while you are performing. 7. Goal setting. The goal setting stat assesses whether you have a set of priorities and goals to work towards, and how far you use goal setting to help manage your development as an athlete. The SPQ20 measures 8 different components of an athlete's resilience, and presents them on a scorecard. This scorecard indicates that in order to be mentally resilient, you need to display the following characteristics and behavior. 1. Managing pressure. The managing pressure stat assesses how successfully you are able to handle anxiety and tension before and during important events. 2. Self-efficacy. The self-efficacy stat measures how much self-confidence you possess, and how quickly you are able to bounce back from setbacks. 3. Fear of failure. The fear of failure stat measures whether you are afraid of failing, letting people down, and not living up to your own and other people's expectations. 4. Flow. The flow stat assesses how far you are able to immerse yourself in your performance, and experience the feeling of playing in the zone. 5. Stress management. The stress management stat assesses whether you are experiencing burnout symptoms such as apathy, fatigue, anxiety, and isolation. 6. Emotions. The emotions stat assesses how far you are able to regulate your feelings and emotions, to maximize your performance. 7. Self-talk. The self-talk stat shows the extent to which you talk positively to yourself, to maintain motivation, stay calm, and perform well. 8. Self-awareness. The self-awareness stat assesses whether you ask for feedback, demonstrate awareness of your strengths and weaknesses, and reflect on your performance. To sum up, an athlete who is mentally tough and resilient, handles anxiety and tension successfully, displays confidence and is not worried about failing. He or she is able to focus and get into the zone, manages their feelings and emotions well, and does not show any signs of burnout. An athlete who is mentally tough and resilient, also possesses a positive mindset, talks positively to themselves and demonstrates self-awareness. The SPQ20 Sportsmanship Scorecard measures 3 components of sportsmanship, to do with ethical behavior, and how you interact with and relate to people. 1. Ethics. The ethics stat assesses whether you have strong principles, behave ethically, and show sportsmanship. 2. Empathy. The empathy stat measures the extent to which you listen to, and show concern for other people's views, feelings, and needs. 3. Relationships. The relationships stat measures the degree to which you develop relationships, engage in conversation, and socialize with other athletes. In summary, if you want to get to the top, you need to possess people skills, and be able to handle yourself well, on and off the field. Handling yourself well is about making time for people, being warm and genuine, having fun, and avoiding shady behavior. Showing that you are not a prima donna. The SPQ20 Power Scorecard measures 2 components of an athlete's mental approach, to do with aggression and the power motive. Aggressiveness. The aggressiveness stat is about whether you perform aggressively. Aggressive play, also called hard play, is not about harming or injuring your competitor. It is about a mental attitude of performing within the rules of the sport, with a positive and attacking manner, to gain competitive advantage. In order to perform aggressively, you must respect your competitors and not let up. Be prepared to play at full intensity all the way through the competition. Power. If you want to lead a team of athletes, you must be able to communicate persuasively, gain people's trust and loyalty, treat people fairly, and guide and mentor people effectively. You also need to possess a desire for power. The power motive, in sport as in politics and business, is about exerting control over other people. Wanting to influence, direct, guide, praise and discipline people. This is what the power stat measures. This is an example of the work ethic scorecard, as it appears in the SPQ20 feedback report. We use a 10-point scale, and red, amber, green traffic light ratings, to show how you compare to athletes in the international comparison group. We also use left and right arrows around the score, to indicate the likely accuracy of the result. For example, in this scorecard, the athlete got a score of 7 on the achievement stat. This is an amber/green rating. The arrows indicate that although we think you are amber/green, you could be amber, or you could be green. It is always a good idea with self-assessment tests, to check out what other people think, because some people tend to have an overly favorable view of their abilities, and other people tend to be very hard on themselves. Red and red/amber indicate a potential problem or a possible significant flaw. If you get any amber/red or red areas, discuss them with your coach, because your coach may see things differently. Amber areas indicate that you have an average score on the dimension in question. In the above scorecard, the athlete has average scores on competitiveness, conscientiousness, and intuition. Amber is okay but not excellent, so amber areas are things for the athlete to work on, if they want to stand out from others in the field. Green and amber/green indicate strengths to capitalize on. An athlete's stats are sometimes presented in terms of percentages. If you are a golfer, you will be familiar with stats such as greens and regulation percentages, sand save percentages, and one-putt percentages. The SPQ20 stats are similar. Your stats are presented on a 10-point standardized scale called a STEN scale that is linked to percentages/percentiles. These indicate the level of your skills and competence at the time of testing. For example, a score of between 1 and 3 is a level 1 score, and in the bottom 10% of scores, 1 is higher than about 1% of the comparison group, 2 is higher than about 5% of the comparison group, and 3 is higher than about 10% of the comparison group. A score of 4 is a level 2 borderline low or low average score. 4 is higher than about 25% of the comparison group. A score of 5 to 6 is a level 3 average score. 5 is higher than about 40% of the comparison group, and 6 is higher than about 60% of the comparison group. A score of 7 is a level 4 borderline high or high average score. 7 is higher than about 75% of the comparison group. A score of 8 to 10 is a level 5 high score, and it indicates that the mental area in question is an outstanding strength. 8 is higher than about 90% of the comparison group, 9 is higher than about 95% of the comparison group, and 10 is higher than about 99% of the comparison group. The SPQ20 assessment test provides a 10-page athlete profile report, and a downloadable guide, with performance improvement tips and suggestions. The report comprises 1. An introduction covering the purpose of the report, how the scoring system works, and short descriptions of what the 20 scales measure, and the stats that you get. 2. A 1-page executive summary of your mental toughness, leadership potential, mental skills levels, along with an indication of how you responded to the assessment. For example, whether you were very self-critical. 3. Concise descriptions of your style and skills, with performance stats. 4. Suggestions on next steps and performance improvement suggestions. There are more suggestions on how to improve your mental approach and skills, along with some YouTube videos, at SportsConfidence website. Remember, the purpose of the report is to give you a framework for assessing your mental approach and skills, to help you identify and work on any mental areas that may be impeding your performance. Discuss the report with your coach, and set yourself goals for improvement. The SPQ20 feedback report comes with a guide, with 100 concise and practical tips and suggestions, for performance improvement, along with reading recommendations. You can download this from our SportsConfidence site. This is an extract of the guide. There are many videos on YouTube about the mental game. We have identified 20 videos that are particularly relevant to the areas covered by the SPQ. You can access these from our site. These short videos feature well-known athletes, coaches, and sports psychologists talking about different aspects of the mental game. Watch these videos, and you will get a really good understanding of why mental skills are so important in elite athlete performance. If you are interested in the technical properties of the instrument, here is a summary. The SPQ20 was designed to meet the standards of a modern psychometric test. The assessment has been reviewed recently by 2 professional bodies. Burroughs Center for Testing. The Burroughs Center for Testing is an independent organization, within the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, that is the world's premier test review center. British Psychological Society's Psychological Testing Center, PTC. The British Psychological Society is the leading national organization for setting standards in psychological testing in Great Britain. The reviews gave a favorable evaluation of the assessment, and recommended further research to strengthen the construct and concurrent validities of the instrument's scale scores. The Burroughs Review states that the assessment shows promise as an additional tool for athletes, coaches, and sports psychologists who seek to describe and improve athletic performance. The review confirms that adequate evidence supports the reliability and factor structure of the SPQ, and there is construct validity evidence among SPQ scale scores and IP marker variables. The PTC review concludes that the SPQ makes a unique contribution to sport and exercise psychology, in its emphasis on how personality attributes and mental factors can contribute to performance. The instrument evaluation of the SPQ rates the quality of documentation as good, and the quality of materials as excellent. The norms, construct and criterion-related validity, and the overall reliability of the assessment, are all rated as good. The user manual, which you can download from SportsConfidence, has further detail. This brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for listening. For more information, visit SportsConfidence.